Hi! This time I wanted to talk about rushing things in tabletop role-playing games. You know, playing as fast as possible. There are some reasons in order to do this, or some reasons that justify this, but there are also some other reasons that may go against this, that may offer some benefits in your tabletop RPG sessions as well. So it's all about playing slow or fast. Let's talk about that. There are even role-playing game systems that promote themselves as methods to run a session in the fastest way possible. For example, Savage Worlds. You still have some crunch, well, slight crunch, but it's about the fast and furious experience. You also have Quick and Classic, one of my favorite tabletop role-playing games. It's insanely quick. Combats are resolved with a single die roll. That is, all of the attacks, the maneuvers, spells, they are compacted or placed into a single roll for the entire group. So there's that style too, but I also enjoy more slow-paced, detailed systems such as Hackmaster. Let's talk about some reasons as to why some people would prefer to rush things, or skip ahead, or whatever you want to call it. Perhaps someone is about to undertake some huge project at work with those heavy crunch times, you know, when you have to work so much in so little time in order to reach a deadline to finish a project. So maybe they won't be able to play tabletop role-playing games in a few months. So in this month or in a couple of months, they want to play as much as possible. So they prefer faster systems or faster ways of handling a system in order to finish a campaign or play more adventure scenarios, etc. Maybe it's something related to health. I will talk about something that I saw a few years back. Well, first, maybe someone needs to undergo some sort of procedure, some medical process or whatever, and that person is going to be incapacitated, or it's going to be that person will have to undergo recovery for several months. So he or she wants to play as much as possible before that moment of inactivity. Now, when it comes to something that I saw, it was several years back. This happened at a website that I don't want to promote because it has turned into such a politically correct... No, it's horrible. It's a horrible website, and it constantly promotes the left politics. I am against both the right and the left. I think you should be human first and foremost. You shouldn't be Christian. You shouldn't be Muslim. You shouldn't be anything. You shouldn't be from the right or from the left. You shouldn't be. That's divide and conquer. So I am against all of that. Just to make that clear. But in this website, when it still wasn't too politically correct, let's call it like that, there was this guy that was running a lot of games. He was running play-by-post games, he was playing online, he had his group in his city, so he was playing too many games, and I always thought, why is he running so many tabletop role-playing games at once? And then a few months later he died, he passed away, and it turns out that he had a very advanced case of diabetes, so he died from that. Well, he said that the doctors couldn't heal, there was no way to cure him, which I think that in most cases that's false, because there are some methods to cure that. Oh, excuse me. Oh, tenebriated Beatles. So sometimes you can find things for that in your pantry even, or in your backyard. Just try to live as healthy as possible, having a more natural lifestyle. But moving on, yes, it's obvious that he wanted to play so many systems, so many games before he died, because he was playing several campaigns and all of that. Very tragic story, but that's another example of why some people would want to rush things, because the games that he was playing, it was always like really fast, moving ahead from scene to scene, spending very little time on the finer points or nuances of a particular scene or details. So there's nothing wrong with that if that's what you're looking for. There are also some people that enjoy that particular style of fast, quick, rushing, all of that. So in those cases, That's perfectly fine in my opinion. That's your choice. But let's talk about some of the advantages and disadvantages. When it comes to advantages, when rushing things or skipping ahead, you are just moving to the particular moments, the particular encounters, scenes that you enjoy the most. So there is that merit. I think that's the reason why most people that actually rush things want to do that. But now let's talk about some cons and pros in favor of a more slow-paced style. Sometimes it's a way of challenging you, taking you out of your comfort zone. Oftentimes people that want to rush social situations, let's say that you are playing your typical fantasy role-playing game, and you have this moment of social interaction with the duke or with a peasant or whatever, and the player is just like, he wants to rush the conversation, get back to combat and exploration. Maybe that player enjoys those moments more, but maybe that player is not very imaginative or skilled when it comes to role-playing social situations. It could be the other way around. Some people want to skip ahead from combat. They consider combat to be almost like, in the worst cases, like an annoyance. In the best of cases, like very short bursts of combat. And they want to rush or speed up combat so fast. And oftentimes that's because those people are not really enthusiastic about the finer details or points in a real fight situation. Because not all combats are fast. That's an excuse that is often used, that combats in real life are really fast. And trust me, as a martial artist that has been through some dangerous situations, when you fight, yes, if both combatants know what they are doing in a one-on-one confrontation, the fight is going to last seconds. Realistic fight where everything is allowed, perhaps 3, 4, 5 seconds. If you know what you are doing, you end up severely injuring the person or knocking out the person. It is somewhat jarring when you realize how easy it is to actually hurt someone, to cause some real damage, even to bones. Sometimes we see bones as they are almost indestructible. Of course they are not, but you can hit yourself like this. It's pretty sturdy. But when you know what you are doing, it's frightening how easy it is to injure someone or get injured in return. So yes, fights in those situations, they tend to last seconds, but there are some other situations where fights can last quite a bit. Two opponents in full suit of armor, that's not going to last seconds, especially if they are wielding deadly weapons. Of course, you're not trying to subdue the enemy or something, you are trying to skewer the other individual. So you're not going to rush into things unless you have a lot of experience, you have superior body conditioning. Then yes, you can of course rush. Some martial artists, like in the knowledge of Miyamoto Musashi, you can he advises that it is terrible to wait. Immediately rush into your opponent and start striking. I actually agree with that. But like I said, there are some other moments where you want to measure things up. Maybe in a battle that has to do with firearms, of course. If the opponent is using a polearm, there are also some considerations. If you are using a polearm, there are many things involving the complexities of battle. There are also some moments, let's say a sniper type of situation, where the combatants are behind cover. You don't want to give away your position, or if the opponent knows your general position, you don't want to expose yourself because you're going to get shot. And this also happened in the ancient times when they were using shields against arrows. Sometimes there was this rain of arrows or javelins, and you didn't want to step outside of your shield or outside of cover. Sometimes they actually spent hours behind cover and their shields. They had to go to the bathroom, they had to pee or even poop behind the cover because they couldn't move from their position. They would get killed. I imagine, of course, they would also eat behind the shield, perhaps behind the wall, etc. And of course, this means a considerable distance when it comes to ranged combat. So sometimes combat may go really fast or may go somewhat slow. It all depends. So I think that when it comes to rushing things or skipping ahead, you are missing out on all of those moments. And like I said, in social situations, many things are revealed during the conversation that you are having with the non-player characters or even other player characters. Many things about world building as well and character development. For example, let's say that you wanted to play a Sherlock Holmes RPG session. Maybe you wanted to be like the movies, the recent films. They are quite action-packed. You do have some investigation moments, but they feel a bit pulpy at times. So, well, in that particular style, you know, a lot of action, moving on ahead, skipping ahead to moments of yes, great excitement. If you're looking for that, that's great. Maybe someone is going to use Savage Worlds or some other system to represent those moments. But what if someone wants to play a Sherlock Holmes experience that is more like the books? You could use the Baker Street system. I actually haven't played that one, but I have been reading it sometimes. It looks really good, and it certainly lends itself for a more slow-paced adventure, yes, or way of running the game, in my opinion. So if you were playing Sherlock Holmes Savage Worlds style, maybe you just want to skip ahead. The characters awaken that next day and they move on to the site of the investigation or to talk with the witnesses or anything, gather clues. But what if someone wants to roleplay the entire thing? You wake up and you call for the coach or the vehicle that is going to take you there. You could describe how the scene is changing from a more urban, early industrialized ambience to more rural environments, because you need to investigate something that happened pretty far away in the countryside. And suddenly one of the characters starts to talk that he and his grandfather used to visit that area when he was very little, and since then his father has passed away, and this is the first time that he has visited this same area in 15 years. The other character in the group could say something like, what do you think your grandfather would think about you following in the footsteps of Sherlock Holmes? Or something like that, and he could say something like, oh, my father would never approve of that, or my grandfather would say that I am way out of my league. So then you get to know a bit about the background of the character, that he used to visit this place with his grandfather, and that perhaps his grandfather was a very strict man. And perhaps you could also figure out that the other member of the group, of the investigation group, he is also quite curious about that character's background. Maybe later on, that other party member, when they arrive at the scene, if you describe like the architecture of the building, how they are stepping into the house, drinking some tea, maybe he will remark that he dislikes that tea a lot, that he, for some reason, doesn't like peppermint, because he had a breakup with his girlfriend at some time when he was drinking peppermint or something, some trauma. So it all relates to world building, character development, and that can usually only be accomplished in such a rich way when you are not skipping ahead, not rushing through a situation or an encounter. So those are my thoughts on speeding up play, rushing through things. Sometimes you want to skip those details, you just want to get to very particular sections of the adventure, that's fine. But other times you want to be as detailed as possible to see all of the opportunities and possibilities for world building, character development, how to roleplay your character adequately. I remember reading from El Cid Campeador, you know, the Spanish hero. During his fights, his thrusts were so strong that he usually ended up with his arm drenched in blood up to the elbow. And in the Gotrek and Felix novels, some battles are so vivid because of the details. In other books, like for example in the Elric's saga, combats are so fast They only describe that Elric cut down this enemy or these few enemies. Their armor suits were like butter before the strikes of Stormbringer. That's it. But when it comes to the Gotrek and Felix books, they describe how the author, because there have been several authors, mostly Bill King, he describes how the sword goes into the ribcage, and sometimes the sword gets a bit stuck. Or maybe there was this other author, I forget his name, he also described a very cool battle between Gotrek, Felix, and some elite Dark Elf warriors. And you can see how you can feel the frustration of Felix as he struggles to strike a solid blow against a single one of the elite drow. The drow is almost like kicking him about, as if he was like a child trying to get into the fights of grown-ups. Only Gotrek is able to keep up with the elite Dark Elves. But Felix is trying to attack and he always gets pushed away in some manner, and the description of how that happens is also quite vivid. So if you want very detailed situations, be it in combat, social situations, even exploration, of course, I didn't cover exploration, but the way that their character is navigating the environment, using all sorts of tools, knowledge, all of that is great if you want a more detailed experience, but you will need to slow things down for that. I also highly recommend that if you are looking for a more slow-paced, detailed experience, that you read some books on the matter beforehand, perhaps a few magazines or watch some videos. If you were to run a Sherlock Holmes game, maybe read a few of the short stories from Sherlock Holmes to get into the mood. So yes, those are my thoughts. I would love to know your comments, your ideas on this. Do you like to rush things, to skip ahead? Do you prefer a more slow-paced experience? Do you enjoy more social situations, combat situations, related to expeditions, explorations, etc.? Let me know in the comment section below. So thank you for watching this video. Thank you for your likes and your comments. If you have any other questions or comments, please let me know. And thank you so much to those of you that are going the extra mile to support the channel. If anyone else wishes to further support the channel, the information on how to do that will be in the description below. Once again, thank you. And see you later.